The Accounts Payable Invoice Entry feature is located under the Accounts Payable module. Enter Payable Invoice. Here we can specify a vendor and post an invoice for that vendor. I'm going to go ahead and type in SW for swing line and hit enter. Incidentally, if I didn't want to look up by the vendor code, I could look it up by the vendor name over here. It wants to know an invoice number. I'm going to go ahead and type in an invoice number 4595 and hit enter. Invoice type, it can either be a regular invoice or a credit invoice. We'll leave it as a regular invoice. The terms of net 30 is good. A purchase order number, we can go ahead and select a purchase order number. Let's say 1002 for 87,750. The date defaults to today's date, with the due date coming 30 days after that according to the terms. We can change this to 6/1, for example, and the due date also changes. Total amount. The total amount of this invoice is 87,800 because this was $50 in freight. Reference. A reference can be used to categorize your purchases on a report or to filter them out. For example, if maybe you had a fire and you want to track all the purchases for a fire, but you wanted them to go to different general ledger distribution accounts, you can still track all your purchases for it by setting up a reference item in the reference maintenance, or you can even put one on the fly. It does not have to be in the reference maintenance feature here, but if you do have it there, then it will appear on the drop-down box like this. So here we have an example for a fire, and if you also have multiple people doing purchases, you can put their name on it and get a printout of all the purchases that they've done. We'll go with the fire item. Next thing is importance. This allows you to select different invoices to be paid based upon a range of importance. And also you can get printouts of invoices based on importance as well. To show you how the reference and the importance does play into the invoice reports, you can take a look at this print invoice reports option, and you can see on this screen we have the range for importance over here, and we also have a range for the reference over here. And you can select a range to narrow your report down to only show you invoices that fall within those ranges. Notes, this is something that you can reference via the invoice status button or the open invoices button on the vendor inquiry. Then we go over to the general ledger information. As you can see, it brought in some default general ledger accounts. These are the accounts that were set up underneath the vendor maintenance screen. We're going to go ahead and put in 87,750 for inventory purchases, and then there was an additional $50 for freight, and we're going to put that towards freight. Notice that the invoice difference on the bottom is 0. Had I made a mistake, and let's say I put in $55, that does not balance out to my invoice amount up here of 87,800. It's off by $5. So what I would do is just correct my mistake, and so the invoice difference is 0. Now I'm ready to post it. However, before I post it, I want to point out one additional feature, is this keep same vendor checkbox is not selected. If I selected, what that means is after I post it, it will keep the swing line vendor selected up on top so that I can just enter in their next invoice number. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to click post. The system says it's in balance. Do I want to post? I'll say yes. And as you can see, it kept the same vendor up. Now let's post another invoice to demonstrate a couple of other features. I'm going to uncheck this so you can see how that works when we're done with this. I'm going to post 4595 again, and you'll see the system will tell me that this number already exists. It gives me the information about the invoice, and it says if I want to post it anyway, I can put a -A at the end of the invoice number, which is actually going to work for me because it turns out we're going to post a credit this time. We're posting a credit for $50 for that freight. They're going to give us credit on that, and rather than edit the invoice, we want to show a separate line item for it. So what we'll do is we'll also specify the same PO number, and the system too will give us a warning about that as well, but it will do it when we go to post the invoice. We'll accept the date which it had remembered. Once you enter in the date, it does remember it for the next invoice, thinking that you're posting all the invoices for the same day. If it turns out that that's incorrect and we wanted to change it to maybe 6/2 or whatever, we can change that date to 6/2. And incidentally, that message was just saying it wants me to enter in an amount here, which I'm going to do now. Okay, we'll leave it as fire. Importance will leave. Everything else will leave. And now we'll just go over to the freight and we'll put in the $50 for the freight. So now I'm going to go ahead and tell it to post this invoice. Now the system is telling us that there's one previously posted invoices with the same PO number. So we'll acknowledge that message. And do we still want to continue? Yes, that's fine. We know that we're using that purchase order number on this posting. And now it cleared the vendor out on top because I had this unchecked. And incidentally, this being checked or unchecked is a default setting in the system setup screen underneath the Accounts Payable tab. And that's how that was set initially. And this concludes the Accounts Payable Enter Payable Invoice feature.